Hey folks, Paul and Alejandra Garrison here, coming to you with another installment in our video series on mulemanship. And the question today is, what is mulemanship? What do we mean by the term mulemanship? Well, it would be very similar to obviously horsemanship, but more particular, we need to think about how we communicate with the mule, how we convince the mule that it's okay to do the things that we are asking. And y'all have to forgive me a little bit. They've made me a cheat sheet so I don't wonder so much when in the process of doing this video. So if you see me glance down every once in a while, I'm checking my notes.
My road.
Why do people need to learn to read their mules? That's a very good question. I've had many people come to me with mule problems. They come and they've got maybe a 30 minute diatribe on what their mule does, how bad their mule is. And you know, the mule doesn't lie. I can spend 10 minutes with the mule and find out just what the problem is. And you know, some mules have some problems. If they've been abused, not treated right, whatever, they can surely have some issues. But the vast majority of the issues that people have with mules come from the being that they look at in the mirror every morning. That's where most of the problems lie. But with that said, it is important when we're handling our mules to be conscious of their demeanor, how they move, when they move, what their persona tells us. It's very important to see that, recognize that for what it is, and act accordingly. People, as I've led to a while ago, people need to be trained really more than the mule does. One of the first things we teach the mule and folks or people is how to do groundwork. I can typically teach a mule to do groundwork quite proficiently in 15-20 minutes. We're doing really well if I can get a human doing the groundwork properly with their mule in a half a day. So the people training is much more difficult than the mule training is. But we have to have those things. We have to have those tools available to us so that we can start down that road that leads to a fruitful relationship with our mule. So the people training is very, very important. Probably, in all honesty, it's probably the biggest missing piece in the mulemanship puzzle is education of the people. Why can't one just go out and buy a mule and get on it and start riding immediately? And that's kind of like when you go to a car dealership to buy a car. They expect you're supposed to know how to drive that car. You know, it's a given. It doesn't work that way with the mule. You've got to know how that mule operates. You got to know how to communicate with him. You got to know how to be confident, and you got to know how to be competent to have a working relationship with the mule. Education, again, going back to our point before, the human's education is one of the most important factors in good, solid mulemanship. The groundwork, the groundwork that we do, the halter driving, is probably the biggest part of putting a good, solid foundation on your animal. It is, in essence, riding your mule from the ground. Everything we ask in the halter driving has a direct correlation to things that we're going to ask them to do from the saddle. So if we have our groundwork well established, not only do we have our mule's mind focused on us, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but we've taught that mule how to make a right-hand turn, make a left-hand turn, disengage the hindquarters, change a direction. We've taught them all those things from the ground before we ever get in the saddle. And another little side note here, if you're using the miler combination bit and your halter is adjusted correctly, the correlation between the two, a rope halter adjusted correctly will contact and put pressure on the mule's nose and jaw in almost exactly the same way as a miler combination bit does. So not only are you teaching him the movements that he needs to know, but you're also teaching him how to react to the pressure on their nose and jaw, which is where the miler, when it's adjusted right, the miler works off the nose and jaw instead of the mouth. But the groundwork is also important. It gives us a chance to check our tack, to make sure our saddle placement is right, make sure our cinches are right. It gives. I relate it to if you've ever flown in a small private plane. The pilot always, before he gets in and starts the plane up, he always goes around the plane and checks all the flaps, checks the oil, checks for water in the gas, checks the prop. He checks everything that's checkable outside to make sure that that plane is ready to fly. Well, obviously you don't want to have a simple issue with your plane overlooked and cause you to have an accident. It's much the same way with that mule. If there's something simple that you've overlooked or isn't adjusted quite right, you're a whole lot better off getting it fixed on the ground before you get in the saddle. This whole thing, what we're really striving for is the rider's safety. If the rider cannot be safe, then that mule has very little, he doesn't have a future. If a mule dumps somebody off a time or two, pretty soon his destination is going to be the kill pen. And there's lots of really good animals that get sent to slaughter because people won't invest the time and money in learning how to operate, get along with, communicate with a mule. What are some of the most frequently asked questions that we get? Well, we get all kinds of questions about the mule. And again, there are some things we need to do with the mule. There are some issues mules have, but again, most mule issues stem from the person not having the knowledge, the background, the confidence, the competence to have a relationship with their animal. Have the leadership. Leadership is a kind of a elusive, if you allow me to use that word, it's kind of an elusive thing. We can talk about it. I can show you what it looks like, but I can't tell you how to be a leader. That is something you have to you through your experiences you have to come to where to develop yourself as a leader for that animal, and that's the most important thing for that mule. After all, they're herd animals and they're prey animals, and they're all looking for a leader. It's what they're genetically programmed to do, is to seek out, and follow a leader. They are not content, they are not satisfied unless they are in the presence of a leader. Mules, horses are the same. You see a horse or a mule that's acting up, antsy, wanting to move, not listening to whoever's on them. It's because they don't have the leadership. They in their perception, it doesn't matter what we think, it matters what the mule thinks. In their perception, they don't feel like they're not getting their needs satisfied when it comes to a leader. And that's where folks have their biggest downfall when it comes to their relationship with the mule. Now, I'd like to invite y'all to check out our YouTube page, Paul Garrison III. Like and subscribe. Also, our business Facebook page, Garrison Mulemanship and Training. And to be sure to follow us when you're there. We have a public clinic coming up October 16, 17, and 18. Would love for y'all to come and join us for that. We also schedule private clinics anytime we have time on our calendar, and you as well. So get with us, and we will see you down the road.